We've got some
Hey,
fresh
I'm
new young
Luis.
talent doing some things
And
that I know
I'm
you haven't
Luis.
heard
And you're
before.
listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to turn content into profit.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah.
All right. Guys, today we're talking about the person every CEO needs by their side.
100%.
So excited.
Yeah, if you are a CEO right now listening to the show, please go ahead and stay tuned because this is the guy that you need there. But before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. Hit and smash that subscribe button. Follow us on social media. We actually go live and record this show live in front of an awesome audience every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So please follow us at the BIZBROS Go. But if you cannot make live, just subscribe and we're going to be there on your podcast platform.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Hi, FONZI. Oh, that's
I think
me.
it's about time we introduce. Yeah, I think it's about time we introduce our guest.
All right. So today's guest is a very dear friend, mentor, and guide. But it wasn't always like that. You know, I first met him at a fitness studios, and I could not keep up with his energy. Like that was insane. Like he would come in like at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., 5:45, and he would just inundate the room with energy. And he's a guy who turns good days into amazing days. More on that later.
He is currently on a mission to help CEOs accelerate. What does that mean? We'll find out very soon. His resume is impressive. Franchise 500, 2 times. Inc. fastest growing private companies, 2 times. Business Journal's Fast 50, 3 times, and so much more.
Introducing the CEO's go-to, the business energizing bunny, and most importantly, the parent and the present dad and loving husband, Mr. Jerry Macnamara. Woo! Jerry, where are you? Where are you? Bam! Welcome, Jerry. We're so excited. We're so excited to have you. Oh man, it's Monday and it was a rough one today, but it's good. We have you in here.
Listen, the only one that's given me a better introduction than that is my mother. So thank you so much. Incredibly kind words. And Luis, I know you have a young one. FONZI, you don't have one yet, but just wait until you turn into a consultant, a second grade teacher, and a preschool teacher all overnight.
All overnight.
Mondays take on new meanings.
I mean, talk about adapting and talk about, pivoting and just adding value to anybody's life. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, no, for sure.
By the way, when I see you next, I'm getting one of those. It's Monday, baby.
Oh, okay. Well, we gotta. I think like people are have been loving this shirt, and it's not ours. Our shirts, it's like Steve Larson, and we owe a ton to this guy, and obviously, we have to reach out and be like, hey, can you make some BIZBROS, branded? It's Monday, baby, and we'll spread the word.
Listen, when you love what you do, it's wonderful to be on Monday. In this current environment, it's interesting because the only time I know what day it is when it's Saturday and Sunday and I don't have to turn in assignments for my daughter.
That's amazing. Hey, Jerry.
Otherwise, it's just Blur's Day.
That's right. It's any other. Hey, Jerry. So, let's give some background to the audience here. We met maybe a couple of years back in the fitness studio, and I remember you coming into this place. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., it changed just a tiny bit, but it was super early, right? And I remember just being there, trying to be all energetic, and then there you go. You walk in, and it's just this hurricane of energy that early in the morning. And I remember one day, you were walking out, and I'm like, hey, Jerry, have a good day. And you just, stopped and turned around, and you're like, why good? Have a great day, man. Have an amazing day. And then you walked out, and wow, what an impression you made. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit why that mindset and why so early in the morning?
Yeah, where does it come from, right?
So it comes from a choice that I make, right? And so it's so important because I think, I actually wrote an article about having a good day, and that becomes your default state. So, you guys work on computers all day long.
Yeah.
How many people don't change how fast their mouse moves for them? How many people don't change keystrokes, any of those things, and they just leave in a default state? So somewhere along the way, someone told you to have a good day, and you just adopted that good was good enough. And I believe that I only live once. I want to have a great day every day. And so, it goes further than that, because I believe you control your mind doesn't control you. And so it's literally a choice you make. Life is a choice that you make, and it's connected to your vision and your values. And I think if you can take clarity of your vision, your values, and your actions, you unlock fulfillment. And to me, that's the highest joy, the highest purpose of life, that you are living your life on your terms. And so I hate when we just accept defaulted answers as the status quo of how we live our life. And so I have a very deep connection to my values. Love my people is my very first value, right? And so I'm a big believer in morning routines, which is why getting into the studio, I've already been up for an hour and a half by the time I get into the studio, because I get up at 4 o'clock. And I realize that that's like an outlier. But if you do like a lot of research, the highest performers in the world all get up early.
Yeah.
I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I am
right.
absolutely willing to learn from people who have been way more successful than I'll ever be, and to do that. But I think it's something that my mom shared with me. She said, smile and the world smiles with you, or cry alone, right? And it's that whole internal locus of control that I am in control of my day, right? And so you can either be Buzz Lightyear or you can be Eeyore. Do you want to be the sad sack? Because sad sacks don't change the world. Buzz Lightyear, he may fall, he may break a wing, right? But he's the guy that's going to go change the world. Who are the people that you really enjoy being around? It's the people trying to do audacious things. So go for it.
Amazing. Love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I love that explanation, especially when you brought Buzz Lightyear. I mean, you definitely are a dad. I mean, we can confirm that now.
Right.
100%.
No doubt. And I think sometimes people give into this thing. I mean, we're in a great scenario right now in the coronavirus, right? The world is happening to me. Those people are operating from fear. If it's, hey, this situation is happening, but what can I control? Let me own my attitude, my approach. Let me learn my skill building, because the economy will reopen. I was just advising a CEO last week. I said the first question that I would be asking any candidate that I was considering hiring is, how did you use your time during this break to build your skills and become more valuable?
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that says a lot from that person, right? Because like, if they did nothing right and just waited, is that really the person that you want to bring into your team? Or is that, really the person that you want to be around? So that's amazing. So Jerry, like, just so like people have a little bit of background, like who's Jerry Macnamara? Like, how does this started? Where obviously you have an amazing resume and you help very, very, very powerful people and super cool people. Like, how do you get there? Like, where do you start? Like, what are these things that happened? And I know like it might be super long, but like, what's maybe a quick version that we can, bring people up to date with this thing?
So first of all, one of the things that I believe is I stand on the shoulders of giants. I've never done anything by myself. And so anyone who says they're a self-made man, they're full of crap, because we all stand on the shoulders of other people who cared about us and loved us and mentored us and did all of those things. So first of all, I've never done anything alone, and I acknowledge that. And I'm the first person to raise my hand and be incredibly grateful for all those people who trusted me and invested in me, to try and make sure that I was successful.
That's awesome.
So just, quick resume. I was able to help run a soccer retail company. We went from one store to 35 stores. We were in 13 states. At one point in time, we went from 5.9 million to 15 million in 18 months. That's when I fell in love with the acceleration of business and drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah.
We broke that company off and sold it off. I then went to Toronto and consulted to an apparel manufacturer in Toronto for 2 years, helped them grow their sales. Came back to the US, started an e-commerce company, selling the company who I was working with in Toronto, selling their uniforms. And we basically vertically integrated that business. He was the manufacturing arm, and I was the sales and marketing arm, right, which was really successful.
Yeah.
And then sold that business to him, and then ran a construction business. We took that from 7 million to 30 million in 3 years. And then I've been helping businesses operate and consult to them, for the last number of years. I think the important piece, as I tell people this story, I've been in B2B, I've been in B2C, I've been in multiple different industries. And what I've learned is, and I think it's part of your thesis, and so that's why I bring it up, business is about frameworks. Frameworks allow you to create automations, to replicate success again and again, a lens by which to look and say, here's where I am, here's where I need to go, here's what's broken, here's what I need to fix.
Yeah.
And so I've never been the technical leader, yet I've been able to create some level of success in a number of different businesses. And it's just the discipline of being super focused, because entrepreneurs, as you guys know this, I think when we first met, and you guys were figuring out like what your market niche was going to be, you can't be all things to all people. And so I had to do my first strategic plan with a company via Zoom. And so there's 10 people on the call. We did it over a day and a half. And the CEO and I were going back and forth because there were a number of opportunities that they were trying to capitalize on their business.
Yeah.
And I said, we can't do it all at once. And I said, the reason why I think companies have hired me and we've created success is because we've been incredibly focused on what it is our approach is going to be and that we can't get it all done. And, sometimes people don't want to hear that, but that's how you accelerate businesses.
I love it.
Yeah, I that's so funny that you mentioned that story, because I remember that perfectly. That day that we went to your house, and you're like, yeah, tell me a little bit of what you guys are currently doing, right? And we were like, yeah, we're gonna be this social media marketing agency, and we're gonna, we're gonna go to a business, and whatever the problem is, we're gonna solve it. And you literally, it felt like you had one of those like silicone gloves, the plastic gloves, and you took it like whoop, slowly and just like slap us across the face. And you're like, no, you gotta focus, right? And I mean, it was an amazing lesson indeed.
How's it working out for you, Fonzie?
It has gotten
amazing,
way better, way better, right?
Yeah.
And I still think that it's like, okay, how can we even get even more focused, right? But it's been an amazing experience because I think it's probably one of the most important lessons that we've learned in this journey of entrepreneurship. That is, you need to focus on the one thing.
And it's a great point because entrepreneurs are much always likened to squirrels who chase the shiny object, from thing to thing to thing. And the reality of it is, this, it takes a focused effort to create success. And certainly when you're starting your business, there is some latitude to say, like, I got to try some stuff because I don't know what's going to work.
Exactly.
And so, there's a testing approach to that. But at the same time, it is not a sustainable, like, a dabble in this for 2 weeks, dabble in that for 2 weeks. You'll never really understand whether you could have been successful in it or not.
Yeah, no, I love it because I mean, just bringing that to the content side, right? Like we always do our best to connect the content into the profit side of the business. And if there's no sales process or anything, or like a framework, right? Like that we talk about so many times. You're not gonna see that connection. You're not gonna see the results. And I was just on a phone call. We do these things called publishing frameworks, and it's basically helping the client get clarity on their publishing framework, just like the title says, right? And it's like, okay, how many times? Like, what's the consistency? What do I say? Like, I don't even know. So there's so much information out there in the world that just like, okay, how can I adapt that to myself? And so she was like, okay, after 6 days of going live, I actually made an offer, and that was it. Like, I'm just gonna do that. And then she got her first 4 clients, and then immediately after, she tied down another sales process, and she was able to close a $4,000 client, a high ticket client, just by following that framework that you mentioned that is so important, right? So for somebody that it's starting right now, because when we talk about content, is obviously the beginning of your marketing, the beginning of your sale, but there is always has to be tied down to that side of business. And that's why I love so much that you are here with us today. It's like somebody that's starting up, like, you know, like this person. What is the number one advice? Other than that, like, you have to really focus on like that one thing, that one process. After that, what comes next?
So it's interesting because I've started to write a little bit about this, Luis, about almost business boot camp. Like, what's your boot camp 101? And I think, at least for me, when I'm advising people, you know, it starts with your values, because your values are your rules of engagement, not only for your employees, but it's the promises that you're making to your customers. And so, that's critically important. Over the course of my life, I would tell you my vision has changed. My why has changed. I got a wife. I have kids. There's things that just move that further down the road, right?
Yeah.
But my values are very enduring, right? That's my approach to life. And I think if anyone is, you know, watching that knows me for my whole life, you know, they would say, yeah, he's been the same guy for a very long time. So I always say, like, come back to your why. I think when I speak to people and they're either not as successful as they want, or they're disillusioned by their business, I ask them, why did you start your business? And most times they can't give me an answer. They've become so disconnected that they're like a leaf blowing in the wind. And so you have to be really fully connected to your vision and your values. That's the start. And then, you know, the tactics, those change all the time, right? So we're testing this, we're testing that. That didn't work. I learned that forward. You know, but entrepreneurship is not easy. I think we all kind of glorify what entrepreneurship is. I've gotten my teeth bashed in a million times. And so, you know, one of the things that I think is critically important is sharing with other people. You know, in 2011, I wrote about my biggest business mistake, and you guys have made a tremendous investment in this area, was that I didn't have a business mentor, a business coach, or a business roundtable. Because you don't have to do life alone. You don't have to do business alone.
Yeah.
But it's our ego that gets in the way of us asking for help, right? Thinking that we're gonna conquer the world. My life has always gotten infinitely better when I ask for help. In fact, it's my favorite thing that I do in business, because I just say, Luis, Fonzie, I need your help.
Yeah.
And what do you say?
Here we go, Jerry. Let's go get Florida Juice and Bowl and tackle the problem.
That's right. How can I help?
Yep.
Right? And so now 2 is better than 1, and we're able to, you know, figure things out together. And so I would advise people to get really connected to their vision and values, to get comfortable that you're going to get your teeth bashed in. You know, entrepreneurship is not like Facebook. We don't get to just show all the wonderful stuff that's going on. And, you know, be willing to take risks. I think, you know, I tell people all the time, don't just stay in the middle of the road, because the only thing you find in the middle of the road are dead animals. So get left, get right, pick a path. And I think it's really important right now. I mean, if you're looking at your business, right, and you're getting started and you're a Me Too business, right? Which means, I don't know, I'm going to give an example in the restaurant industry. If you're Red Robin and TGI Fridays, and I mean, there's so much sameness there. Why does the consumer choose you?
Yeah.
Right? And so if you're not differentiated, you're probably not getting people's vote, and they're going to vote with their pocketbook, right? And so I hate Me Too businesses, like with a passion. But I think those are the first things that I would be talking to people about. Vision, values, get willing to get your teeth bashed in, take some risks, and make sure you're differentiated.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I love Owens, and I think especially the sharing with others, right? Like that has been a point that I think we have covered lately with a few other entrepreneurs that have been in the show. We've talked about vulnerability, right? And the fact that you said asking for help. I remember, again, another story with you, right? Like last time you invited us over to your house that you wanted to discuss, certain projects. I remember when we stepped out of it and I told my brother, I'm like, dude, I'm so grateful and at the same time excited, that someone with the resume that Jerry has, right? Like all this big accomplishment, like he's asking for our help. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was mind blowing. I was like, wow, that is so cool. Like how humble this guy, and not only that, like willing, like you can clearly see that you live on the values of like, I can learn from anybody. Anyone. I can learn something from anybody. And for me, that was mind blowing because at that point I was, I believe as well that we can learn something from everybody, but I was always looking up, right? Like all these people, like big time players, right? When maybe I can learn something super important looking, not down, but maybe looking in the same direction.
Let me just jump in on that, right? So I don't, in my life, I don't stratify people, right? And so everyone has different roles. We just have different roles and opportunities that we fulfill. Mm-hmm. And so, it's the same thing with accountability, right? When I run organizations, I believe highly accountable organizations that execute are the ones that win and unlock the lion's share of rewards in the marketplace. One of the things that I believe really deeply is, and I think I shared this with you guys, that I'm trying to complete a book. My wife keeps on asking me where it's at. And so it's coming. It's coming. You guys will appreciate this. It's like pushing a dirty peanut across a bar floor at 2 a.m. That's what it's like trying to finish, right? Certain things. Anyway, So principle 4 is intellectual curiosity, right? So we can have this vision, we can have the values, but if we don't have the skills to execute on it, then you're sunk. So you have to be intellectually curious. It's single-handedly why I've been able to be successful, because I've not been the technical leader, but I've been intellectually curious as I walk into every business to learn their business and then apply foundational principles on top of their business so that we have the discipline, the focus, and the systems to execute, and then suddenly the business spins up.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, right?
Yeah. No, I love it because like you keep talking about principles, about those frameworks that can really be applied anywhere. And, as content creators, sometimes we get so fixated in like the latest trends, the latest tactics on how to do this and how to do that. And a lot of people find that friction, like it's like a wall, like they can't get through. And then because of that reason, then their message is not able to get out to their audience. And then they're, they cannot add the value that they could otherwise, right? So thank you for bringing that. And it's major picture in the business, and you work with like amazing, massive companies, and those are things that everybody can really apply, right? At any level, and the growth that they could experience after that, it's amazing. So
I would tell you, it's even more important as your company is starting to instill those disciplines. Because as you start to accelerate, that's when you get exposed,
Yeah.
And so if you have those disciplines to start with, that it's systems and process, and do I have the 10s in my organization, not the 6s and 7s that most people, hire because they're a little less expensive. Go hire the 10s. I mean, that's how you do things better and better and better.
That's awesome. Did you ever have, I mean, a lot of the things that we talk to are, obviously the fear of being judged out there, or at the end of the day, it's like the fear of failure. And, you mentioned earlier, it's like, you're going to get hit in the face, right? You're going to lose some teeth sometimes. You're going to, it's not going to be pretty. And we've lived it, I mean, if Fonzie opened his mouth, you could tell there's no teeth at all. So, he just takes it. But, so do you ever, do you remember, maybe one moment that it was like, oh my gosh, I'm this is it. I'm not going to continue this journey. And if you had that moment, what was it and what made you continue?
So, first of all, I think ego is the enemy. So just start there. Yeah. Ego is the enemy. And anytime you start asking, how does this reflect on me, instead of how does this reflect on the business that I'm a steward of, then you've done the wrong thing, right? And so every company that I've led and been in charge of, I speak about ego, and that I have failed you as leader if I haven't connected you to our mission and how we approach the business. Yeah. Failure is perfectly okay. So when you change your mind about what failure is a terminal condition. So to me, it's your first attempt in learning. Okay, I know that didn't work, so therefore I'm going to try something else. Mm-hmm. And so I don't mind at all the idea that finding out what didn't work. And so, coming back to, if you're in a business boot camp, being really attached to your vision and your values is super critical, because that's what drives your action. How bad do you want it? Because if you don't want it that bad and you're not truly connected to them, then you're not being driven by it. And so regroup. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. And so, if you're not willing to take those risks and to fail, then maybe you shouldn't start a business, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I want to add something to what you just said, right? You said, I think it's about also adding a little bit of perspective, because some people are afraid of failing, right? And then when they fail, they are like, oh, I invested all this time and all this, and now I have to start all over again. When maybe you can say, wow, good, that didn't work, one less thing and one step closer to where I want to be, right? So I think it comes back to mindset in a lot of people and how they tackle all these problems.
When you win the mind, you win the day. End of story. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Life is a choice you make. My daughter and my son both know. I asked them, are you going to choose to have a good day today? Because they recognize it's their choice. Right. And so, yes, I'm programming a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old to take stewardship and ownership that they are impacting the world, that it's not the world impacting them. And so, I was on another podcast and I was asked this question about fear of failure. I don't buy into it, because you know what I'm fearful of? Being 75 years old, being on a hospital bed and thinking, shit, I could have picked up the bat and been Babe Ruth, and I decided to sit on the bench. That scares the shit out of me.
Yep.
Right? And so that's me. And so, yeah, I'm going to take swings and I'm going to go for it, because I don't know. I want people to show up to my funeral. Right? So this is perspective, Fonzie. I want people to show up to my funeral and tell my kids, you know what? Your dad is a loving person. He left me in a better place than I was when I met him. And he took some risks. Some of them worked out. Some of them didn't. But he left me in a better place, personally.
We're definitely going to say that in your funeral, for sure. We are. Just so you know.
Say that again?
We're definitely going to say that, in your funeral, for sure. You left us in a better place.
Thank you. But here's the point.
Yeah.
I think people have visions of the world they want to create, but they're unwilling to take the action. And so then they leave it to chance.
Yeah.
And so when I look at businesses, I think about like in the supply chain of delivering your product or service, where can I take chance out of the process? And you do that with, you know, intellectual curiosity, which means you have great training, you are hiring the right people because they are intellectually curious too. Anyway, I mean, having learning organizations, I believe in that like with my whole core. Having learning organizations win over time because they evolve. Right? If you're trying to solve today's problems with yesterday's knowledge, you are done because it's probably not yesterday's knowledge, it's probably 10 years ago's knowledge.
Yeah, no, that is true. Something that you just mentioned right now, that you were talking about what your real fear is looking at your deathbed, right? And having those regrets. And it reminds me, you just mentioned as well, ego is the enemy, right? And I mean, there's this author called Ryan Holiday. He actually wrote a book called Ego is the Enemy.
It's one of my favorite books. He's one of my favorite guys.
Yeah.
I think I sent Luis. He started Daily Dad.
Yep.
Oh, really?
It's like a two-minute inspiration. I love it. I shared it with a number of dads.
It's like
I
these
love
little nuggets.
So yeah,
amazing,
I mean, he's huge on stoicism, right? And those philosophers are known for actually thinking about mortality, like that big picture. You know, like what is people gonna say pretty much when I'm dead, or what am I gonna be thinking in my deathbed?
Give you the further backstory on this, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a junior in high school, and I'm such a nerd that I was reading 3 newspapers a day. And so I was reading the Wall Street Journal. I remember this vividly. I was in the library in my high school, and the Wall Street Journal used to have this right column they would run, and I remember reading it, and the author basically said, by virtue of living, you're bound to leave an inheritance, even if it's a nickel. But what will your legacy be? And so to me, that's how I've lived my life, because I just thought, I can't control what people are going to say about me, but I can leave them clues. I can leave them stories. I can, like, what's the story that someone's going to tell?
Yeah.
I hope you leave good stories. I certainly, and to be fair, I have lots of times that I have messed up in my career. And, I try and be the guy that raises his hand and say, I messed up in that situation. But I've missed the mark a million times for sure. I've missed it, both in my decision-making and in my relationships. And so, by far, I am not perfect. I don't want to, portray that, right? But
Yeah.
I've always been in that mindset of like, what's your legacy going to look like over time?
Yeah, and I think it's good, bringing that up to the failures and recognizing that you've failed through your journey. So like people that are listening to this that are like, oh, like it all sounds so perfect. It's like, no, like even though they're failures, like you're keeping that mentality, right? Like not only staying positive, but like looking at the big picture. And the other thing that I wanted to come back to was the kid story, because even before I met you, Jerry, I remember this story of that my brother told me that I was cracking up. He's like, dude, I went to have lunch at Jerry's and talked to him, and I don't remember the exact story. I remember obviously the big picture. So Luis, I'm gonna hand you the mic. Tell the story.
It wasn't lunch. Like I remember, like we live in this place where like it's we have a beach, right? So we were out there sharing with people from the studio, a couple coaches. And I remember where like we had different beach games, and there was one that we had to throw a ball. And I remember catching the ball, and Brooke comes to me, she's like, I can't remember how old she was, but like she was so tiny, and she's like, look at me. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm looking down, and she's like, yeah, look at my eyes. You can do this. You can do this. And I'm like, and she's like, repeat with me. And I'm like, you can do it. And I'm like, she's like, this like 7-year-old just like pumping me out. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and at that point, like we weren't these close of friends, and we just like we met each other, and that's it. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I just want to be close to that guy, because if he raises his kids to be that way when they're
let me interrupt you. You know my wife.
Yes.
Okay, so. You don't get a better person than Rachel. You don't get a more, I call it BO, Barnes optimism,
But yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so there is not a challenge that woman doesn't take on or thinks she can overcome. And even if she doesn't, it's still okay and on to the next thing. So while I appreciate it, and I certainly try and do my part, that's Rachel.
Well, I hope she does listen to this episode, and just know that you guys have a special place in our heart just because of that story. That's it. That's how everything started. But yeah, I'm like, wow, it's incredible, how we can build this into the kids, and you see so many people out there, and not just with kids that don't have that north or don't have that attitude towards different challenges or different situations in life. But even the people that we help, or the potential clients that outside they might seem very successful, then as soon as you start peeling, those layers, you start discovering a lot of issues that maybe started so long ago. And at the end of the day, we use content as a vehicle, right, to maybe work on some personal development, because it's incredible. As soon as you start publishing, all these monsters are going to come back to you, right? And right now we're living in a world where transparency is a thing. We have to accept that we have to be transparent, we have to be honest, and if you want to connect with your audience at a different level, you're going to have to do these things that maybe you don't like, but you're going to grow so much because you're going to tap into this personal development, growth, different aspects of that's only going to make you better. And I believe that a lot of people are very scared of that. We were massively scared. We were freaked out before we even started publishing. And we have different stories where if I say this, right, if I show that we're building this, that we're following our dream, a lot of people are going to be really mad at us because we actually have the opportunity. And it wasn't until somebody actually said the words what if you're that person that actually motivates them to take the next level, take it to the next level, take it to the next step. What if you're that person? So it's amazing that you're touching this on the business side, but I feel like a lot of people have to listen to that because their audiences are waiting for that, right? Their clients are waiting for that. So
I think it's critical, and what you're talking about, and I'm going to wrap back around to my kids because I think it's critical what you're discussing. It takes a village, it takes a community to be successful. And so it's not just Rachel and I, it's all of the people who have invested in us to love my kids the way in which I mean, there's so many of them. It's incredible. And what you're talking about is using content for attraction and value to build a community based around shared values and shared interests, so that it's this is my tribe. These are my people. And together we elevate, right? And so you may be the match that starts the fire, but you don't have to be all the firewood. And so I think that's the piece that people forget in all of this. Rachel and I are blessed to have Briggs in Brooklyn, but we're not the only ones responsible for them or raising them. They're teachers, incredible teachers. And I think what you're doing with content is much like what we're doing with our kids, right? We open them up. We made a very conscious choice when Brooklyn was born. We handed her to every person because we wanted her to get used to being held by lots of people and not being scared by people. Yeah. It's the same way. When you start sharing your message, Brooklyn was our message, right? Yeah. You start sharing your message, a little scary, right? She was never really dropped, but someone's going to tell you your content is fat and it's ugly and it's got hair in the wrong places and its eyes are crossed, but that content's beautiful to you. Oh yeah. Right. And so that's a-okay. Find the people who really take joy and appreciate your content.
I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think honestly it gets to a point where you see content. I feel like this is how we see it right now, right? We see it as a filter. And it's building those communities, right? It's going to attract the people that you want to hang out with, to share stories with, to listen to their stories. Like you said, create a community, and it's going to repel the people that you don't really want to work with. And again,
that's why I'm going to come back to it. Sorry, I'm going to come back to, and you maybe go into this, but it's why values are central to your success. Because if you don't stand for anything, then you're never going to resonate with people.
Yeah.
That's why I say, pick your position, right? It's going to be, some people are going to hate it. That's okay.
Yeah. It's going to happen once you receive that permission. It's like, okay, it's going to happen. Then you can just be prepared and be like, okay, now I can have a plan on how I'm going to deal with that and move on and just stack the positives, because I'm helping a ton of people too. People listening to my message.
Yeah. I was gonna circle back a little bit to where at first, right, in our story, we wanted to be a jack of all trades and do everything for everybody. And without we didn't have a message at that point. So we thought that was like the rational thing to do. But as you start publishing, you start creating that message and connecting with people, and you realize you cannot do anything, because the people you are connecting with, you're going to be able to help them with one thing, that is your message that you're putting out there.
I agree. I shot a video and I chose not to share it. And it was the things that I've learned about becoming a second grade teacher. And so one of the things that I've thought about is that when you really think about the most successful people, they're not well-rounded people. Well-rounded people are good at a number of things. People who are world-class are great at one thing. And so it's one of the things that I've thought about. My daughter doesn't like math. No, she's in second grade. So there's foundational things. She's actually very good at math. But if there was a subject that she didn't like, why do we spend all this time remediating beyond the foundational elements to make you learn something that you're not going to use and you don't love, right? I'd rather reallocate that time for someone to be really great at something that they loved, because you know what? They're going to be passionate about it. And so actually on the Daily Dad this morning, it was how to get kids to read. Get them to read something that they love, and all of a sudden they foster like this love of reading. Well, you know, don't give them these esoteric novels that you're going to pull meaning out of. Give them something, whatever they want to read. And that they may love that, but I just think that's really important.
I love it. So to wrap things up a little bit, well, first
we got to stop.
Well, not yet, but I have a couple more questions. We can do part two. It's fine. You know,
we're gonna have to.
I'm sure the audience is gonna be like, yeah, we want part two of every guest, because like we've been in this position with everybody. Like, oh my god, we can't continue like forever. But just for the sake of editing on the team, we have to kind of wrap things up. But just tell us a little bit, like where are you now with your business, because you are an entrepreneur now, and you know you're creating this amazing thing. And then after that, what's a good action point that you want to leave our audience with?
So what am I doing right now? I am helping CEOs and owners accelerate their business. And I say with fewer headaches, right? We're still going to have headaches, but they're going to be fewer.
Yes.
There's never an entrepreneur that I've met that says, I'm okay with where my business is. They're always looking to iterate and invent and innovate, to the next level. And so that's what I love doing. I call it drinking from the fire hydrant, is just that whole notion of how do you challenge and tackle the biggest business problems. As you might imagine, this environment has been super interesting for me. I've gotten to speak to just over 70 companies in the last 60 days. Some just a phone call, right? People just trying to figure it out. Some engagements out of that. But, you can go see me at provenchaos.com. If you want to read some of my previous writings, you can go to jerrymacnamara.com. I've written about lots of different things. Most of them are about, in my view, how to live a great life and how to perform at levels that you never thought you could. And so, that's what I'm doing right now.
That's awesome. And guys, please go ahead and check him out. provenchaos.com. Amazing. Also, one of his blog posts, I remember this being a making a big impression on me is like that one day that you almost died. You had like this big cut like in your neck, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? So that read alone was amazing, and it brought so much like clarity, and just the way that you put that story to work for your audience was amazing. So thank you for sharing that crazy moment, I guess. So what's a good action point? You know, if you want to leave with one thing to our audience, like what's that one thing?
Be intellectually curious and don't be afraid to fail. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be intellectually curious. You have to suspend your own beliefs. You know, my favorite morning intention every day is to live in wonder, not in judgment. And I think that's particularly important. So I'm going to rant for half a second. As you know, go figure, I like to talk.
Love it.
But
just like FONZI.
Chris Voss, who was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI, wrote a book, Never Split the Difference.
Amazing book. Yes.
Amazing book, right? So he talks about black swans. And black swans are pieces of information or situations that are happening that don't match up with your experience, your previous experiences, or your success frameworks. And I'm going to tell you, in this environment that we're in, you have to look for the black swans, because the world has changed. And if you're not paying attention to the gaps that are getting created, when someone says something that makes you say, that's crazy, pay attention, because that may be the new normal. That may be the pivot you're looking for. And so stop relying on what your previous frameworks were, because the world's changed. And so you got to start paying attention. It's going to be harder right now, but in this environment, you know, if I talked about a global mindset, that would be it. But in this environment, I'm telling people, look for the black swans, because they're out there.
Amazing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm actually reading a book right now called Anti-Fragile, which is by the same author that wrote Black Swan. And I mean, he's talking about exactly the same thing, you know, look for those moments, embrace them, because those are the difficult ones, but those are the ones that are going to make you grow and be better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I've spoken to companies that like are waiting for business to come back. It's like, it's not coming back, and it's not going to come back for some certain period of time. And so you better start thinking about, you know, again, your vision, your values, how you're going to execute, how you're going to be differentiated in doing that, and what risks are you going to take. It's going to be an interesting next 3, 6, 9 months.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our Black Swan happened like 40 days ago. We just published about it. It was like, we were really scared that we were about to go out of business. From that situation, we were able to pivot and change the way that we operate, and just like dive in fully into the things that we believe. And it turned out to be the biggest month that we ever had. So please follow Jerry's advice. We did that without knowing that he was going to give that advice. Well, that's amazing. Jerry, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was fun, guys.
We love that you loved it. So we might have to do a second time.
So much fun to talk to you, Jerry, like always. And I want to encourage people to actually reach out to Jerry and send him a message for a book recommendation, because he gives pretty good book recommendations.
Yes, guys, with that,
I like to read.
Yeah, big time. Like his big library. He next time he comes on, he has to tell us a story about the library and what happened with the library and all that. So
intellectual curiosity, man.
Yes. With that, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Please do not forget to subscribe. Smash that subscribe button. Follow us on social media at the BIZBROS Co. And give Jerry a visit at provenchaos.com. Thank you guys so much. I will see you on the next episode.